Jack Carter sat in a rusty chair at the back of a smoky alien bar. He wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble always seemed to find him. The bartender, a slimy creature with 3 eyes, slid over a warm glass of something purple. Jack took a sip, pretending it didn't taste like burning metal. Life wasn't easy for a human on the edge of the galaxy. He worked small jobs, tracking lost robots, cheating spouses, stolen credit chips. But today, and I received a message, unsigned, asking him to meet someone powerful. Someone dangerous. The door to the bar opened, and silence fell. A tall alien walked in, surrounded by guards in dark armor. He had blue scales, glowing red eyes, and an aura that made others step aside. It was Vernax, the most feared alien crime boss on Station Veltranine. Jack had heard stories about him. Some said he once fed a man to acid worms for speaking out of turn. Others whispered he controlled the black market in 3 sectors, and now this monster wanted to talk to him. The guards motioned for Jack to follow, and he didn't argue. They led him through tight metal corridors into a private chamber. The lights were low, and the walls were covered with weapons. Vernax sat on a throne made from the bones of some huge creature. He looked at Jack and smiled a cold, sharp smile. "You're the human detective," Vernax said slowly. Jack nodded, trying not to show fear. "I need you to find someone for me," Vernax continued. "My wife, Zevra, has gone missing." Jack blinked, confused. "You want me to find your wife?" he asked. Vernax stood up, his large shadow filling the room. "Yes, but this is not a normal case," he said. "She left without permission, and I must have her back." Jack frowned. Was she kidnapped? Vernax's eyes narrowed. "No, she ran, and I want her returned unharmed, untouched." There was something strange in his tone, like this wasn't about love, but control. Vernax stepped closer. "You'll be paid double your normal fee." "Human," he said, "but if you fail or try anything stupid, you'll wish you were never born." Jack felt the threat in every word. Still, the money was good, and he didn't have many options. "All right," Jack said quietly. "I'll find her." Vernax nodded and handed him a small hologram device. It lit up, showing a photo of Lady Zevra. Jack's breath caught in his throat. She was stunning, tall, with soft violet skin, glowing green eyes, and silver hair that flowed like water. She didn't look like someone who belonged in a dark empire. She looked trapped. "Start with the lower docks," Vernax ordered. "She was last seen there 3 weeks ago." Jack took the device and nodded as he turned to leave. One of the guards leaned in and whispered, "Don't fall for her tricks, human. She's not what she seems." Back in his small apartment, Jack stared at Zevra's photo. Why would someone like her run away from all this power? Why hadn't she just asked for help? Or maybe she had, and no one listened. Jack packed his bag and loaded his pistol. This wasn't going to be easy. He could feel eyes watching him already. Vernax wasn't the kind of boss who trusted anyone, especially a human. The space station buzzed with noise and neon lights as Jack stepped outside. He blended into the crowds of aliens, droids, and travelers. But inside, his mind was racing. He had taken dangerous jobs before, but this one felt different. This wasn't just about finding a missing person. This was about walking into a fire. And if he wasn't careful, he would burn with it. Jack didn't know what Zevra had done. He didn't know why she left, but something in her eyes, in that photo, pulled at him. She wasn't just missing. She was running. And now he had to find her. Not just for the money, not just for Vernax, but because deep down he wanted to know the truth, even if it killed him. Jack walked through the lower docks with his coat collar raised. Hiding his face from the station's many cameras, the air smelled of metal, oil, and something worse. This part of Veltranine wasn't a place for questions, and yet Jack had plenty. Everyone he passed either ignored him or stared too long. He didn't care he was looking for one person, Lady Zevra, the wife of the most dangerous alien in the quadrant. And according to what little intel he had, she had been here, alone, 3 weeks ago. He asked around quietly, showing the hologram. 2 vendors, pilots, and janitors. Most shook their heads or walked away, pretending not to see. One old woman with cybernetic eyes stared at the image, then looked around nervously. "She bought a cloak from me," she whispered, paid double, and vanished into the tunnels. Jack thanked her and dropped a few extra credits. It was the first real lead. And it gave him a strange feeling. She wasn't hiding in some rich tower. She was running through trash-covered corridors like a thief. Jack followed her trail, piecing together small clues: an empty cup with her DNA residue in a sewer tunnel, a hacked terminal used to book a one-way shuttle off station. Everything told him the same thing: she didn't want to be found. Not by Vernax, and maybe not even by anyone. Still, he kept chasing, pulled by something stronger than duty. Her image stayed in his mind, and her eyes, captured in the hologram, looked like they were silently screaming. He tracked her across 2 more moons, one floating market and a refugee freighter. Each time he found the trail just a little colder than before. But one night, on the rain-soaked mining colony of Tral 5, everything changed. He checked into a local shelter, hoping to rest. That's when he noticed the eyes watching him through the cracked ceiling vent. He didn't move, didn't react, just waited. 10 minutes passed, and then he heard a soft thud on the floor behind him. He turned, slowly, hand near his weapon, and there she was standing in the shadows, soaked from the rain, her silver hair clinging to her face. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice like music buried under stone. Jack didn't reach for his weapon, didn't move toward her. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said calmly. "I just want to talk." She narrowed her glowing green eyes. "They always say that before. They put chains on me." Jack took a slow breath. "I'm not working for Vernax anymore." Zevra stepped closer, her cloak dripping water on the cracked floor. "You came for money. Now you say you want truth," she whispered. "Which is more dangerous?" Jack stared at her, unsure how to answer. She didn't look scared. She looked tired, fierce, and ready to disappear again. He spoke carefully. "Why did you run, Zevra?" She tilted her head, her lips trembling slightly, "Because being owned is not the same as being loved," she said softly. "He doesn't want a wife. He wants a mirror to his power." The room fell silent. Only the sound of distant thunder filled the space. Jack looked down, remembering the warning Vernax gave. Don't speak with her too much. Now he understood why. Her words didn't just carry truth, they broke the chains of control. Jack felt the shift, a weight in his chest he didn't expect. He didn't feel like a hunter anymore. He felt like an accomplice to her escape. Zevra turned to leave, but paused. "Go back, human," she said. "Forget you saw me." But Jack didn't move. He couldn't, not after hearing her voice, not after seeing the pain behind her eyes. "If I go back, they'll send someone else," he said. "Someone who won't talk first." She closed her eyes, her shoulders trembling for a moment. The strong alien woman looked like a lonely girl just trying to breathe. Jack walked over and gently placed his coat around her shoulders. "I'm not taking you back," he said. "Not unless you want to go." That was the moment she looked up at him differently. Not as a hunter, not as an enemy, but as someone who had chosen to listen. Outside, the storm roared louder, but in that broken room, something fragile and new began to form. A trust neither of them had asked for, and a bond that neither of them was ready to admit, not yet. Rain fell outside the broken shelter, but inside, everything was quiet except for the sound of her slow breathing. Zevra had taken a seat beside the cold wall, her knees pulled up, her hands wrapped in Jack's oversized coat. Jack didn't sleep. Not even for a second. He kept one eye on the door and one eye on her. He didn't know what he was protecting her from, any more her enemies or his own thoughts. At first, he had taken the job for credits. Find the missing wife, drag her back, and collect the reward. But something had changed the moment she had looked into his eyes and asked him, "Do you believe me?" That question had followed him through space, through cities, through danger, and now it sat between them like a fire with no warmth. In the early hours, Zevra finally spoke again. "I used to think love was real," she said, her voice quiet and dry. Jack listened but said nothing. She continued, "Until I married Vernex." She looked at her hands, the same hands that once wore gold rings and now shook from cold. "I was traded like property during a peace treaty," she whispered. "He never touched me like a husband, only like an owner." Jack clenched his jaw, trying to push down the anger rising inside him. He didn't know her before, didn't know what kind of person she truly was. But he believed every word coming from her mouth now. Because lies didn't shake like that. Lies didn't flinch when they remembered pain. "I don't want your pity," Zevra said suddenly. "I just want a chance to choose my own ending." Jack stood and looked out the small window, watching. "Shadows move outside. We don't have much time," he said. "They're close." Zevra nodded and stood up too, adjusting the coat on her shoulders. "I know," she said, "and I'll keep running if I have to." But Jack stepped in front of her, blocking the door. "No more running," he said firmly. "Not alone." She blinked, surprised. Then her voice dropped lower. "You're not the man I thought would come for me." Jack gave a tired smile. "I'm not even sure who I am anymore." They made their way to an old shuttle yard, hidden behind cargo towers and broken drones. The plan was simple: steal a low-signal ship and vanish into the dark lanes. No tracking, no trace, just sky and silence. But as soon as they stepped into the yard, they froze. Two bounty hunters stood near the far gate. Scanning the area, Zevra grabbed Jack's arm and pulled him behind a metal wall. "We need a distraction," she whispered. Jack looked around and saw an old fuel barrel. Dented and unstable, he picked up a stone and threw it hard. The barrel tipped, crashed, and exploded in a burst of sparks and smoke. The bounty hunters turned instantly, weapons raised. Jack grabbed Zevra's hand, and they ran through the opposite gate. They didn't stop until they reached a river of flowing blue lights, where an old shuttle sat waiting like a sleeping beast. "Can you fly that thing?" Zevra asked. Jack grinned. "I can fly anything that doesn't talk back." Inside the ship, the systems were cold and old, but Jack brought them to life with practiced hands. The engines hummed like ghosts, waking from sleep. Zevra stood by the window, watching as the bounty hunters appeared far behind them. "Too late. Where will we go?" she asked. Jack didn't look back. "Somewhere they can't find us." As the ship rose into the dark sky, Zevra took a deep breath and leaned against the wall. She was safe for now, but her heart wasn't calm. Something had changed inside her too. Maybe it was the way Jack had looked at her, not as something broken, but as someone worth protecting. Or maybe it was the way her hand fit in his, like it had been waiting for it all this time. But she said nothing, and neither did he. They just flew into the stars together, not knowing what waited ahead, not knowing that someone was already tracking their escape, not knowing that love was already growing between the lies far behind them on a different moon. Vernax stared at the blinking screen. The ship ID was old, but not invisible. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes glowing with quiet rage. "You're starting to disappoint me, human," he whispered, "and I don't like being disappointed." The air inside the shuttle was thin and full of static. Jack could feel the old controls shaking under his hands. Zevra sat behind him, silent, watching stars streak across the window like rain on a car windshield. Neither of them had spoken in the last hour, but both of them were thinking the same thing. They had just made themselves enemies of one of the most feared men in the galaxy. Jack adjusted the course, then leaned back in his chair. He didn't turn to face her, but he knew she was still staring at him. "You should sleep," he said, his voice low. "I don't sleep well anymore." She replied without blinking. He understood. Running for your life did that to people. Suddenly, the ship jerked violently, a warning light blinking red above them. Jack cursed and checked the scanners. Someone just dropped out of hyperspace. "Behind us," he said. Zevra stood quickly, fear already returning to her face. "Can they track us?" "No," Jack said, lying. Zevra didn't believe him, but she sat down again, holding on to the edge of her seat. Her fingers were pale, and her knuckles white. "Where are we going?" she asked. Jack pointed at a nearby moon on the screen. "Somewhere quiet, somewhere dead," he said. "No sensors, no life, just dust and shadows." The ship broke through the atmosphere of a cold gray moon, landing near a broken mining facility. As they stepped outside, Zevra pulled Jack's coat tighter around her. The wind howled across the rocky surface, sharp and dry like it carried secrets. "This place feels like a graveyard," she whispered. Jack didn't disagree. He had fought battles on moons like this, places forgotten by time and mercy. They took shelter in an old hangar, the metal walls still strong after all these years. Jack lit a small heater and unrolled 2 thermal mats. Zevra didn't sit. She paced. "Do you regret it?" she asked suddenly, her back to him. "Regret what?" he said, not turning me in. Jack looked at her for a long time before answering. "Every day," he said, "and I'd still do it again." That made her stop. She turned slowly. Something unreadable in her eyes. "I don't know how to trust anymore," she said. "Then don't," he replied. "Just stay alive." Later that night, Jack woke to a sound outside. He grabbed his weapon and stepped quietly into the dark. He found Zevra sitting on a broken crate, her arms wrapped around her legs, staring at the stars. "They'll never stop," she said. Without turning, Jack lowered his weapon and sat beside her. "No," he agreed, "but we can keep running, or we can start fighting." She gave a soft laugh, tired and bitter. "I don't want to be anyone's symbol." "Jack, you're not," he said. "You're just someone I don't want to lose." There was silence for a long time. Then, without warning, Zevra leaned her head against his shoulder. Just for a moment, just long enough for Jack to forget he was supposed to keep his distance, back on Veltranine. Vernax stood in front of a massive screen showing their ship's last location. A young alien soldier approached carefully. "We believe the human has grown." "Emotionally compromised," the soldier said. Vernax didn't respond at first. Then he spoke slowly. "Find them, and when we do." The soldier asked. Vernax smiled without warmth. "Bring her back alive," he said. "As for the human, make him watch before you kill him." The next morning, Jack and Zevra worked together to repair the ship's signal blocker. They didn't speak much, but their movements were quiet, steady, familiar. Something had shifted between them overnight, something unspoken but strong. Jack noticed the way she looked at him, now less like a stranger, more like someone trying not to feel, and Zevra noticed the way he flinched when her fingers brushed his. They were both walking toward something, slowly, dangerously. As the ship powered back on and prepared for takeoff, Zevra turned to him. "If we make it through this, what happens next?" Jack looked at her, eyes tired but honest. "Then you decide," he said. And for the first time in a long time, Zevra smiled. Not a big smile, not a happy one, but a real one. A piece of herself she had forgotten she still had, and Jack, watching her quietly, knew he was already in too deep. But he didn't care. Not anymore. The first bullet didn't miss. It just hit metal instead of flesh. The second one ripped through Jack's shoulder as he pushed Severa behind cover. Blood splashed across the cold wall of the abandoned outpost. Jack didn't scream, but his teeth clenched so hard they almost broke. Severa shouted his name, dragging him deeper into the hallway as laser fire lit up the sky outside. "They found us," she said through shaking breath. Jack coughed, holding his shoulder. No kidding, the bounty hunters had come faster than they expected. 3 of them, maybe 4. Armed with tracking gear and thermal rounds, Jack's old war instincts kicked in, but this wasn't war. This was survival with a woman who meant more to him than the mission ever had. Severa pressed her hands against his wound, and Jack winced. "We can't stay," she whispered, panic starting to rise in her voice. He nodded, sweat running down his face. "We've got 30 seconds before they flank us. I'm not leaving you," she said quickly. "I know," Jack replied, trying to smile. "That's the problem. They moved through the back tunnels, broken and filled with dust." Jack stumbled once, but Severa held him up. "You're heavier than you look," she muttered. Jack chuckled softly. "That's all muscle." "You wish," she said, trying not to smile. They reached the ship, and Severa threw him inside before slamming the hatch shut. She ran to the pilot's seat and started the engine. It roared to life just as another round exploded against the hull. Jack dragged himself to the console and locked in coordinates. "We can't outrun them," Severa warned. "We don't have to," Jack replied, pressing a button marked scramble. The ship jumped hard into the atmosphere, twisting like a bird in panic. Behind them, the bounty ships lost signal and scattered. In confusion, Severa looked at Jack, still pale and bleeding. "That was close," she said. "Too close," he whispered. And then everything went black. When Jack opened his eyes, he was lying on a narrow bed, a dull ache pulsing in his arm. Severa sat beside him, tired, her hair a mess, eyes red but watching him like he might disappear. "You passed out for 7 hours," she said quietly. "Did I snore?" Jack asked. She smirked. "A little." He tried to sit up, but she stopped him gently. "You need to rest, and you need to listen." Jack stared at her, and something in her tone made him go still. Severa looked down at her hands, trembling slightly. "There's something I didn't tell you," she said, "about why I ran." Jack stayed quiet, waiting. Severa stood and walked to the window, looking out into the stars. "Vernax didn't just want a wife," she whispered. "He wanted a future?" Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" Severa turned around slowly, and there was pain in her voice now. "He forced scientists to experiment on me," she said. "Tried to make me fertile. To carry his bloodline." Jack felt his chest tighten. She kept speaking, her voice shaking but steady. "I escaped before they could finish. But I don't know what they left inside me." Jack stood slowly and walked toward her. Severa looked up, eyes wet. "I'm scared, Jack." He didn't say anything. He just pulled her into a quiet hug. And she didn't push him away later. When they sat beside the engine room's low light, Severa rested her head on his shoulder. "I didn't plan to care about you," she said. "I didn't want to." Jack replied, "I know," and for a moment, the war outside, the blood on their clothes, the tracking signals, it all vanished. There was just silence and breathing. And something real between them, but peace doesn't last. Not for people like them, far across space. Vernax stood inside a black chamber, lined with monitors. On the main screen was a freeze-frame image of Severa resting her head on Jack's shoulder. "Emotion," he growled. "Weakness." He turned to the room of assassins behind him. "Send her a message," he said. "Something that will hurt." One of the hunters stepped forward. "Do we kill the human?" Vernax smiled slowly. "No," he said. "We make her choose." The message didn't come through a screen. It came in a box, small, metal. and still warm when Zevra found it placed silently on the cargo bay floor. There were no alarms, no sounds of entry, no warning. Someone had been on the ship and had left without being seen. Jack rushed over as Zevra held the box in her hands. Her fingers shook, and her face turned pale as the box opened by itself with a soft hiss. Inside, there was only one thing. A photo, old and wrinkled. It showed a child half alien, half human with silver eyes and hair like Zevra's. Under the photo was a note written in Vornax's sharp black script. "You were pregnant when you ran," it said. "Now you must choose which one of them dies." Zevra stared at the photo for a long time, her breath caught in her throat. Jack gently pulled it from her hands and examined it. "This can't be real," he said, trying to sound certain, but Zevra looked broken. "I felt something." She whispered, "I thought it was just sickness." But maybe it was life. Jack took her by the shoulders, his eyes fierce and focused. "We don't know if this is true," he said. "He could be lying. He wants you scared." Zevra nodded slowly, but her heart was already spinning. "He's not just hunting us," she whispered. "He's hunting our child." They left the ship and moved to a new location on the edge of an asteroid ring. Jack activated every cloaking device he had. They were hidden now, but not safe. Nothing felt safe anymore. He patched up the ship's outer hull while Zevra sat silently, watching the stars like they might answer her questions. Jack sat beside her and handed her a hot drink. "We're going to fix this," he said. Zevra didn't respond at first. Then she asked, "Would you still be here if I wasn't who I am?" Jack didn't hesitate. "I'd still be here," he said. "Maybe even more." She finally smiled. But it faded quickly. "You could walk away," she said. "You didn't sign up for a war." Jack leaned closer, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "I'm already in it," he said. "The moment I chose you over the mission, there was no walking away, but far from them." Hidden inside a deep space station, Vernax watched everything. He had placed trackers inside the photos ink. Now he knew where they were. He pressed a button, and a countdown began. 1 hour until a bomb hidden in the box would activate. He leaned back in his chair and whispered, "Let's see if she can save him, or if love will cost her everything." Back on the ship, Jack ran a scan of the box. One more time. Suddenly, the screen lit up red. "Thermal spike," he said. "Something's wrong." He opened the back of the box and found a blinking red light. Zevra gasped. "It's a bomb." Jack didn't wait. He grabbed the box and ran toward the launch hatch, opened the door. He yelled. Zevra slammed the controls, and Jack threw the box into space seconds before it exploded. The blast rocked the ship, sending it spinning off axis. Zevra screamed as she hit the wall, and Jack rolled across the floor when the shaking stopped. Smoke filled the air. Jack pulled himself up, coughing, and rushed to her side. "You okay?" he asked. Zevra nodded, tears running down her face. "He wanted me to watch you die," she said. Jack helped her up, and for a moment, they just stood there in silence. Then Zevra leaned into him, resting her head on his chest. "I won't run anymore," she said. Jack held her close. "Good," he whispered, "because I won't let you." They sat on the cold floor together, heartbeats steadying. Breathing slowing for the first time, Zevra allowed herself to cry. Not for fear, not for pain, but for what she had lost, and what she might still have. Jack didn't speak. He just held her, strong and steady, like a wall no storm could break, far away. Vernax watched the explosion from his monitor. He didn't flinch. He just smiled slowly. "You chose wrong, Zevra," he muttered. "Next time, I won't give you time to think." The stars above felt colder than ever. Jace stood alone on the barren cliff, the wind tearing at his coat. Solara was gone. Vanished like a shadow at dawn. His heart ached, but there was no time for grief in his hand. He held the last message she left, a small data chip glowing faintly. It was everything they had fought for, the proof to bring down Vorkath. But the path ahead was darker than any starless night, because enemies were coming, and they would not stop. Jace climbed down the rocky slope, eyes scanning every shadow. Every step reminded him of Solara's voice, soft but fierce, "Trust no one." She had said, "Not even me." He swallowed hard, wondering if he had. The ground trembled beneath his boots, distant engines roaring. Vorkath's forces were closing in fast. Jace ducked behind a boulder as fighters screamed past. His mind raced. He had to deliver the chip, no matter what. Suddenly, a hand grabbed his shoulder. He spun around to see Solara alive, bruised, but burning with fire in her eyes. "You didn't give up," she said. "No," Jace replied, "because I never wanted to lose you." They moved together, faster than before, weaving through canyons and ruins. The data chip pulsed like a heartbeat between them. A fragile hope behind them. Explosions lit the sky. The war coming to their doorstep. At the edge of the rebel camp, they met Mara, waiting with a squad. Jace handed over the chip, and the rebels cheered. But Solara looked at Jace, her expression torn. "We did this," she whispered. "But at what cost?" Jace took her hand, steady and warm. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." And as the stars watched silently, they vanished into the night, two souls bound by danger and hope. Knowing their story was just beginning,